The North End Community Improvement Collaborative, or NECIC, is a nonprofit organization founded in 2006 with the support of the Fran and Warren Rupp Foundation. The NECIC defines Mansfield's North End neighborhood as the area north of Park Avenue West, between Trimble Road and North Main Street, and south of West Longview Avenue. This area equates roughly with Census Tracts 6 and 7. NECIC's mission is to improve the quality of life for North End residents by identifying, supporting, and connecting local assets and advancing community economic development in Mansfield's North End. In 2008, NECIC completed a 4-year strategic plan, and several things came out of this process. Number 1, the NECIC vision statement. Number 2, the need for a community economic development campaign to formulate a community-driven plan to attain this long-term vision for the North End. NECIC's 20-year vision statement states, as a result of our efforts over the last 20 years, the North End in 2028 is a community of significant prosperity and innovation. While in 2008 we were considered a drain on the local economy, today we are the leading engine of economic vitality, arts, and positive youth and civic engagement within the city of Mansfield. It is important to understand that 2 key concepts are paramount to the work that NECIC does. Number 1 is asset-based community development, and number 2 is community economic development. Most communities have 6 types of assets: the talents and skills of people, community groups and networks, government and non-government agencies, physical assets such as land, property, buildings, and equipment, economic assets like the productive work of individuals, consumer spending power, and local business assets, and finally local identity and values, the stories, heritage, and history of a community. According to asset-based community development, all individuals have assets to contribute. Individuals bring their assets together and form associations. Associations are the cornerstone of Western democracy, in which citizens freely interact around areas of mutual interest and concern. From hobby clubs and sewing circles to political parties and fraternal organizations, associations represent those areas where individuals care enough to act collectively towards some common goal. In the most general sense, NECIC is about identifying these assets and connecting them in order to magnify their capacity for affecting change in the community. Another way of thinking about the asset-based model versus the traditional deficit-based model is the old glass half empty, half full scenario. For the NECIC, the glass is always half full. Along with asset-based community development, NECIC's comprehensive plan for the North End is also guided by the principles of community economic development. Community economic development, or CED, is essentially the practice of defining, creating, and implementing community-driven strategies and projects that promote economically sustainable communities. CED activities can include, but are not limited to, community organizing, workforce development, microenterprise, food cooperatives, affordable housing, and creating non-traditional financing mechanisms for bricks and mortar projects. At its core, however, the C in CED is the critical component, as without community involvement, economic development efforts are unlikely to be sustainable. In 2007, NECIC completed an economic base assessment of Mansfield's North End. This process revealed the existence of approximately 430 businesses located on the North End. It should be noted that included in this count were physicians, lawyers, churches, nonprofit agencies, associations, and clergy, alongside of traditional retailers, manufacturers, and restaurants. As this small sampling of examples illustrates, Mansfield's North End community is teeming with economic, cultural, recreational, and educational assets. Overall, it is the people who call the North End home who are the area's most valuable assets. And the NECIC has been listening and documenting their concerns since 2006. Ultimately, it is their input that guides our comprehensive plan. According to our surveys, North End residents most often express concerns about vacant and boarded up homes, excessive trash and debris, including unmaintained yards and lots, and the overabundance of vacant lots. These are just a few of the issues addressed by our comprehensive plan. The North End Comprehensive Plan contains 5 sections: framework, plan components, target areas, implementation plan, and community participation. To provide a contextual framework for the plan, a historical summary was prepared and a demographic profile generated using Census Tracts 6 and 7 as the basis for the data. A brief review of past planning efforts is also included to illustrate how past efforts align or do not align with the community's vision for the North End. The plan's 5 component areas include land use, housing, economic development, public infrastructure, and community spaces. Zoning codes that govern an area or parcel define the character and possibilities for any given community. Land use on the North End is varied and includes low-density residential, commercial, and industrial uses. In some cases, industrial uses are directly adjacent to housing, creating potential environmental and health issues. Commercial uses are typically found along major transit corridors, but can also be found in residential districts. 3 primary recommendations emerged in this section: prevent and mitigate the results of incompatible land uses, change zoning codes to allow for increased economic activity where appropriate, including allowing live-work units in residential areas. Include all stakeholders, including residents, in conversations regarding potential zoning code changes. This should include convening meetings prior to the formal public notification period. The aging housing stock on the North End has been declining for many years, with the number of vacant, boarded, and abandoned homes continuing to increase. Census Tracts 6 and 7 have the highest number of foreclosed properties in the city. Additionally, 61% of all housing units are in poor or lower condition, as defined by the City of Mansfield's Consolidated Plan. This translates to 61% of all North End residents living in or adjacent to substandard housing. This also translates into health disparities among North End residents, for example, lead poisoning and respiratory disease resulting from black mold. The North End does, however, have well-maintained properties, a historic district, ample opportunities for the renovation of existing properties, and the availability of land for the construction of new units, side yard expansions, and public green space.